background thrown in.
Sweet. All right, we are in. We are going. We are rocking and rolling. What's up, friends? What's up, brothers? Justin Jones
From another mother's.
with D Yitty and the IC coming at you
Let me do it this
live.
way.
How is everyone? I think I spoke to most of y'all while we were waiting on Dennis, but
Man, I'm peachy.
that's good. That's good. You're about to
Let
be
me add it.
you're about to be taking a trip, aren't you?
Yeah.
What day are you leaving?
Can't you tell by the hat? Isn't that a dead ringer right there?
Yeah. Man, look at that secretary's office behind Jason.
I'm
Look at all those Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, yeah. I try to do some cleaning up of this monstrosity that is the Guadalupe Lodge fire room.
Man. Dennis, where is that? What's that background at?
That's my lodge, man. Oh, so Naval Lodge, buddy.
Oh, okay. Man, I
I
like
was fit to
those
say that
nails.
ain't Goliad.
Yeah. Well, I know Goliath has the all-seeing eye above the east, and it's like, oh man,
Yes, we
dude,
sure
that
do.
is nice. I like
Yes, we
that.
do. Yes, we do. And with the new LED lights that Brother Yates was able to help facilitate putting in our lodge, it's a nice shadow angle right there on the all-seeing eye. It
Yeah,
looks pretty
it
cool.
kind of points to it. It's pretty awesome.
Do those
Yeah, y'all
lights?
did a great job, Josh. Y'all really did.
Do the lights you have that are above? I don't know what you actually would call those. Those lights that are closest to the ceiling that are kind of reflecting on the ceiling. Do they change
Right.
color or are they just one hue?
No, those are one, but that's because they were installed quite a while back.
Uh-huh.
Um, the ones we have in Goliad are like that, and we just changed them all out from fluorescent to LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd like to do next, not anytime soon, we're going to put dimmer switches on so that we can dim them anytime we want to. But in the future, what I'd like to do is get some of the LEDs to change colors, and then that way we can just hit them with a remote and change colors.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know of a lodge that they use different colors for the different degrees, and it's cool. Adds a lot of ambiance. Speaking of lighting and everything, I went to a forum yesterday, and
Yep.
I was very happy to hear that the Committee on Work um, does not officially. You're not supposed to turn on and off the lights. You
Right.
should keep it one level the entire degree. And I think we all know what part of the degree you're talking about, that I'm talking about. And I always thought that was silly to do it. I mean, what they're not. That's not for the candidate. The candidate can't tell, right? So, I'm glad. The light levels have been addressed because I never liked that. So now it's
Oh, you never liked that people dimmed them?
no, it's not the dimming, it's the turning off.
Yeah, well, I like to turn them all off except for in the one that's above where the master is
Uh-huh.
and the one at the altar.
Oh, let me back up because I think we're I agree. I agree. I like a lodge that's dimly or darkly lit. It provides an ambiance, and even though the candidate may not notice it, it definitely affects the presentation of the degree. But what I'm talking about is changing the light level during the degree. A lot of lodges do that at a particular time. That you know what I'm talking about?
Right, yeah. Well, that's what I'm talking about. Is that, they leave the lights on so nobody trips and falls while they're doing
Mm-hmm.
everything. And then during that certain time, they lower all the lights except for the one that's over the master and the one that's over the altar.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, when it comes time, everything's dark except for those two.
Yeah.
And that's where your focus of attention goes to because that's where the light is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like it like that.
But
And then afterwards, when they go back to doing the other stuff, you can raise them back up, turn on all the rest of the lights. But that's why I always like that. I don't see it the same way as you, I guess.
well, it's been my experience because what you're talking about is giving them time to kind of appreciate the ambiance the emphasis on the lighting and everything like that.
Right.
It's been my experience, like, as soon as they, I don't want to go too into the weeds here. We can talk about it after, but this is not the case. What you're describing is not the case in my experience with law lodges.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times they just turn on everything
Well, they flip
at
it
that moment.
Yeah, that's
which,
what I'm saying.
which is pointless.
It is.
That's pointless.
It is. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's I get it. I get it. Yeah, that's pointless.
But yeah, that was I would recommend anybody. And granted, a lot of people show up now because of the requirements, but beyond the requirements, I'd recommend everybody that can go to a forum, go to a forum. I've still learned things every time I go.
Well, I think I gotta say, man. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No. I just I always get value out of it.
I gotta say, people that go to that forum for the requirement is people that I think are half-ass in what they plan on doing in as the master. And I'm sorry, not sorry. But what the goal is for everybody to know the work. It's not for them to go and watch a forum and then go back and shit all over their lodge. That's the fact, Jack.
I don't.
This is just ginger ale.
Really feel, Dennis.
Yes, this is just ginger ale. Well, Josh, we've got a badass lodge, and every one of our officers know what they're doing. Every time they sit down, they know what they're doing, no questions. And then you see these other guys that you go to these other lodges, and they can't. They couldn't open the toilet lid to use a restroom, much less open a lodge. So
I've seen some of those bathrooms at those lodges. I agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's all over the floor.
I think that part of the advantage we have at Goliad is we have a floor school every Wednesday, and we're pretty diligent at practicing opening and closing, or doing a degree of what's coming up, or practicing receiving a DGM or things like that. So
yeah. Well,
that's what really helped.
Absolutely.
As a district instructor, I gotta say, we have like two options. We're really three. I mean, but I'm not gonna count past master as an option because, I think it's just kind of a get out of jail free card. But we have an option that will absolutely positively benefit your lodge and will cause. There's nothing negative about it. Having everybody proficient in the ritual, that's a positive thing. It just takes work. Or you could show up for 2 or 3 hours one Saturday, stare at your phone, and get signed off, right? What's better? Actually putting the work in and learning the actual ritual so you can conduct your meeting. Like we said before, that ritual is what separates you from the Lions Club and Rotary and all these other organizations. Or just go and attend, just be a warm body in a seat. Hopefully you pay attention, but based off the lodges I've seen that these guys do that, I don't think they all pay very good attention. I'm not saying they don't all, but I don't think they all do. But I think it's also, I don't want to go into that. But yeah, I agree.
Brother Hoff, are you there? Or are you eating your fish?
Yeah, I'm stuffing my face. I didn't want y'all to be hearing me gobble down this fish my son just caught for me.
I hear you. Let me ask you something real quick. Did I send you that paper I wrote that I did for the Alamo?
Was that for the Alamo?
Yeah, that's the one that I read for Alamo Lodge.
Oh, the Alamo Lodge. Okay.
The one that's disenfranchised. Did you read that one?
You sent me something that was really good about, and I sent you a reply. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, the disenfranchised heart.
Yeah. So if you think about the end part of that paper and the cosmos that we're walking into, don't you feel like the lodge requires ritual to get ourselves prepared to go into that cosmos and then to come back out of it so that we'll be ready for the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
So that's my point, and that's why I really feel so strongly about it because, we're not going into an Elks Club or a Jason
He
looked
looked
down
down real
right at
fast.
that. What you talking about? We're not no, but we're not going into a Rotary Club or anything like that, right? Like Justin
Right.
said before, that's our difference.
Mhm.
And if we truly understand where we are in the moment that we step foot in that lodge, then we
Yes.
understand the importance of the ritual getting our mind and conscience there so that we can do our work appropriately.
You know what? You hit something that's so powerful, I think, that a lot of people overlook. The reason, let's back up, because I've asked myself this before, and I think you answered it beautifully. With why do we have all of this ritualistic opening and closing just to handle a business meeting? Well, for one, it's not really meant to be that way, right? It's not really meant to just be a business meeting. But two, is to prepare yourself mentally for something different, something to separate yourself in your mindset and your attitude from the outside world, from the profane world, and focus on the actual lessons that you're about to receive, the actual personal development that's going to take place or supposed to take place in that lodge room that evening. And it's the same. And I'm not turning this into a suit versus anything else argument, but this is something I've read about on certain blogs, well before I started like Masonic Approved and everything. But the argument for basically what this was, what I was reading, it was talking about how people used to wear suits everywhere and now they don't, and the value of dressing up like for work and things like that. The process of dressing up, say you're going to go to a fancy dinner and it's a tuxedo dinner. The process of putting on that tuxedo, going through the putting on the cufflinks, getting your tie right, putting on your jacket and everything, that's a sort of ritual, and it prepares you mentally, whether you know it or not, for what you're about to do. And that applies to so many things. You're not gonna put on a tuxedo and go run around acting like a fool, or you shouldn't, unless you're like
Right.
Jim Carrey. You got like an orange tuxedo on or something like that. But
That wasn't Jim. Jim had the blue one.
was it? Oh yeah, okay, he did have the blue one.
Get it right.
So this is Dumb and Dumber. Unless
Yes.
you're one of those kind of guys, which you probably shouldn't be a Mason anyway if you're acting like that. But my point is, it's the same mentality. This is why we have the ritual, and this is why it should be taken seriously and treated solemnly. This is why some lodges actually treat their lodge as a sacred space, and they don't allow non-Masons in there, right? Because this is a special place where special things are supposed to happen. Yes, look at that. Anyway,
Yeah, you walk into a lodge like this, and you know what your purpose is.
yeah,
And then if your leadership doesn't back that up with good ritual, then you just completely crapped on the whole reason for you being there.
absolutely.
Because you can have a business meeting anywhere without, I mean, heck, you can do it on Zoom without the necessity of opening and closing with ritual, right?
Well, if your lodge is all about just business meetings, what do you have to offer that these guys can't get from these other organizations we talk about all the time, right? And if anything, if someone is happy with the business meeting and that's all they want, why would you join Freemasonry? Because the requirements and the expectations are so high that you could just as easily petition a local Lions Club or something. No ritual involved, no degrees involved. You're a full member as soon as you pay your dues and everyone votes you in. It's done. It's a done deal. And you can go to business meetings all you want. Right? We're supposed to offer something more than that.
Yeah. Brother Dutton, he just mentioned that, the purpose of our journey into the lodge is education.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually true. No matter what anybody says, you're learning when you are, whether it's in fellowship or an actual education presentation, or you're doing ritual or whatever, your brain is learning something, right? So if you're not doing any of that stuff to make you a better person, what the heck are you wasting yours and everybody else's time doing there? Mm-hmm. That's all I got to say. Yep. Go ahead, Jason, what you got?
All right. Well, I mean, just talking about, using opening ritual to get your mind in the right set. And since you called out the elk, even in a fraternal organization like the Elks, it's not esoteric at all. It's not, it is a civic and social organization. But even still, their meetings, there is an opening and a closing ritual, and it's done very similar. And it is kind of the same idea, is to put yourself into a proper mindset, during a meeting. I mean, most of them now do like this shortened one where they essentially declare it open. When I was exalted ruler, I never did it. I did the full opening, which they build the altar in the middle, and each station tells what they do and what it means and stuff like that. I always did the full opening, and that was the reason was to put the members in the right mindset that we're now in a meeting. And we have the same rule. You don't cross between the altar and the station of the exalted ruler, and you cross, all that kind of stuff. It's all the same thing. Later on, I'll, if you guys move on to a different topic, I'll kind of tell you what I just stumbled across in here. You guys might find it interesting, but
cool.
When you're on a different topic.
I love it.
Cool.
Yeah,
I think we might be there. Go ahead.
The article that you sent, the section that talked about the passing from the square to the compass, the terrestrial to the celestial, that was kind of mind opening for me, and I think that goes along with what y'all are talking about, with putting yourself in a frame of mind to better work in peace and harmony with your brothers, doing the business, and then receiving the education. That's what my whole theme is going to be, is education this year. Of the 4 principal tenets, there's going to be kind of not tenets, the tenets.
The cardinal virtues.
Cardinal virtues. Yeah, I'm sorry.
There you go. That's cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that I'm having a coin made, and they're on that, and then I'm gonna have 3 months on temperance, 3 months on fortitude, and so on. Just trying to stay with that theme, because I really think the EA stuff is really interesting.
I tell you what, I'll along with the invite that you gave me, I'll take on justice. As you read in that paper, man, that's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite topics in Masonry. It's one of the most misunderstood, in my opinion. So I'd love to jump on that one in that quarter with you.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Great.
Very cool. Is there anything else along those lines that we want to talk about? Because I had something in mind for this evening, but I just let it go where it went, right? So something that we've mentioned before on the show, and I ran into Cody Stewart yesterday, and he always reminds me every time I see him, because I mentioned this one time at Masonic Con, and I guess it stuck with him, and I feel like we hit on this sometimes, but given the nature of the show and the fact that we get new listeners. I mean, we have the regulars, but we also get new listeners on a regular basis. I think it's good to revisit concepts on occasion. And so where I'm going with this is, we talk a lot about slowing down the process, but I would really, we don't ever just focus, we don't ever hone in. Like, we'll talk about something random and say, yeah, we really need to slow that down. But I think there'd be some value if we just say like, hey, let's just look at when we say slow down the process, like what are we really saying? Because we're not talking about just specific things. We're talking in a broader sense at the same time. You follow what I'm saying, Dennis? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just like to touch on that. I mean, we don't have to stay on that if the conversation goes somewhere else. But I was just thinking earlier today, like, what can we talk about that I think would be relevant, not just for the veterans that are here on a regular basis, but also for the new listeners. Because I don't know about you, but I know like when I'm teaching something, there's value in revisiting important concepts, even if people have heard this before, just because people have short memories. We're all very busy, and I think sometimes when you get caught up in the hustle and bustle of just Freemasonry, whatever else you do with your life, your family, your job, it's easy to forget things. So I think we should maybe just take a breather and look at that concept this evening and explore that together. So when we talk about slowing down the process, Dennis, and we can of course open this up to Inner Circle. I mean, that's why y'all are here. But Dennis, what comes to mind when we talk about slowing down the process?
What I see is brothers actually taking a deep dive into each degree and really understanding what they're a part of, what their purpose is in this big plan, where they fit in the puzzle, right? Because you're coming in and you're all anxious to become a Master Mason, right? Mm-hmm. But you actually fit in this puzzle we call Masonry. And a lot of times we see brothers that are so busy trying to rush through the work, the memorization, not the work, but the memorization, that they miss that piece of the puzzle. They're on to the next degree before they ever really grasped this first degree. Mm-hmm. Now, if we were to intentionally slow it down, I think that I would change my stance on how I feel about the memorization. Because I always tell brothers, because of the fact that the lodge is pushed so fast to try and get everybody pushed through, I always tell brothers, just memorize it for now and then come back to me and we'll talk about it later. Just get through the memorization part. I don't want to cloud your thoughts in too much, going down too deep of a rabbit hole. Because I really don't want that to be on your mind while you're trying to, do the catechism. Mm-hmm. So I just tell them to go through it, and then we'll talk to them. We'll talk about it later. On any point that struck you intensely, then we'll definitely hit on it, and I'll take you down that road. But if we were to stretch out the work, let's say we're given a full year to do the EA, right? Mm-hmm. The opportunity of doing a full year. If we were to take on that full year, even if he learned the catechism, I would say give him a deadline of the first 6 months. Then the second half be specifically writing papers on different working tools within that degree. Because like Brother Hoff said earlier, he saw a different side of what that means to go from the terrestrial to the celestial. And you're absolutely right. And you're not alone. Most Masons, that doesn't really click with them until somebody actually tells them this is what that kind of means. And granted, what I wrote is not just the only thing that it means, because we're speculative, right? But it is really the biggest point that we're getting across is in that particular part. And so if we got brothers to go through and do their memorization pretty quick for the EA first 6 months, and then the second 6 months tell them, now break this down. Mm-hmm. Now break down these tools that you were taught to learn in this degree, and let's understand what your purpose is in in life at this moment, utilizing those tools in this moment. That way they get a better grasp. And then do the same thing with the fellowcraft and the masters. If it was a 3-year process, I don't think we would lose good brothers. Because I know I was anxious enough to become a Mason to begin with. I would have stuck with it no matter what. Mm-hmm. I did. I took longer than the year, and I stuck with it because it meant something to me. I just kind of had a lot of things going on right then. Ended up getting a divorce right after, but but I stuck with it, and I would have stuck with it. Just like the dues, I would have paid 10 times more to join the degree fees. I would have paid 10 times more to join because it meant that much to me. So at the end of the day, if we were to slow it down, the quality of the brother that we would have on the other side of Master Mason would be so much different than what we have today. And even myself, it took me a long time to get to where I am today.
David Lawson asked, do you think the lodge instructors should be on the same page with that? Is what you're describing right there.
Oh, absolutely. That should be a culture of the lodge. Mm-hmm. That should be something that everybody believes in within your lodge to create better Masons that are going to be a real part of our fraternity, a real part of your lodge. They're going to feel that connection that a lot of brothers just don't have. They just rush through it. They don't really understand any of it. Nobody can really explain a lot of it because they did the same thing. And so then they drop out because they're thinking, well, this was a bait and switch. I didn't get what I was coming for. And then 5-6 years later, they'll dip their toes back in it. And that's when they start really taking hold of these principles, because that's when they start meeting up with the guys that, yeah, so you didn't like it the first time. Now we know that you're looking for something a little more. So let's feed this guy. I see it all the time. Mm-hmm. Didn't mean to take up the whole topic.
I think that's great. I'll add my 2 cents also, and then we'll open up to the inner circle. I agree with what you're saying as far as the degrees. I don't think there's anything we do in Freemasonry that benefits from us doing it hastily, aside from sending out dues notices. Other than that, I think slowing down most processes would be beneficial. And so I'm talking about from day one. If you have someone that comes to your lodge and says, hey, I'm really interested in petitioning the fraternity, then the most successful lodges that I know of right now have a policy that you don't get a petition right away if you're interested. Sorry, I got something in my eye. Usually I say on average what they do is they'll require this guy to show up and come to the lodge for about 6 months. Some lodges do a little bit longer than that, but 6 months is kind of the average from what I hear, and I would say that's probably a good minimum. And what that does is, so what happens is every time there's going to be any kind of lodge function, this guy is invited, right? Unless the lodge, like after 1 or 2 meetings, like, okay, this guy's nuts, we're not going to invite him back. And just explain to you, hey, we're gonna invite you to our meetings, and if we think you're a good fit, we'll invite you back. We'll keep inviting you. And what that does is it gives the lodge opportunity to get to know this guy, and it gives this guy an opportunity to know the lodge, because he might be looking for something that lodge is not offering, and this guy might just not be a good candidate for Freemasonry. And I don't think you can really get to know a person with sending 3 guys to talk to them for an hour, right? Granted, sometimes you can tell pretty quick. You look at their Facebook or you go to their house and you can tell pretty quick. But I would also say it's pretty easy, and I've seen this before, it's pretty easy for a guy to keep his crap together for a few hours and act normal and get into the fraternity. But if you're inviting this guy time and time again for 6 months to every event, and he's showing up, it's kind of hard for him to keep it together if he's got something he's hiding. Furthermore, I'd also say if they can't make it, if say like you invite them to every steady meeting for dinner, like he's not coming into these meetings, but he's coming to dinner and get to know people. But if you invite this guy for 6 months and he can only show up like twice, his schedule is probably not going to really permit him to get value out of the fraternity at that time. And it might be that everybody loves the guy, but it's just he's not there often enough. He's too busy. Either he doesn't have the dedication or his schedule doesn't permit it. And neither one of those is really like a like, hey, you're not going to be a good Mason kind of thing. But it's more like a, hey, this is probably not good for you right now. Because if you can't come to the lodge, if you can't make it regularly, you're not going to get value out of the fraternity. The fraternity's not going to get value out of you. And because it's a two-way thing. And you're not going to be able to learn any of the work. Like, how are you going to come learn the work if you can't even show up to practice or anything? And me personally, I think face-to-face is the best way to do it. So,
hey, Justin, I'll be right back. Let me back in here in just a second.
Sure. Oh, Johnny gifted some memberships. Thank you, Johnny. Congratulations, everybody. That's really cool. What was I saying? But not just that, but I also agree with the degrees themselves, slowing down that process, making sure people actually learn the quality of the work. What wasn't, I don't know that Dennis hinted at this, but the question was, should the instructors be on board with that? Yeah, but the thing is also, if you're going to take more time and really unpack those lessons from the questions and answers, your instructors have to be more familiar with the work themselves. And so when Dennis said that's a cultural thing you have to make into your lodge, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. Because if your instructors are still just learning, if they just know the basics, like the questions and answers and nothing deeper than that, then that's a problem. And I'm not suggesting that they have to know it all right off the top, but instead of when someone asks a question about a specific concept, instead of saying, don't worry about that now, just worry about memorizing the work. And I've seen that, and I know other people have seen that as well. The instructor needs to say, I don't know, I'll look into that and get back to you. And that's an opportunity for the instructor to grow, as well as provide light to this new brother. And not only that, but further than allowing, he's training another person, and when that same question comes up, now he does have an answer. So it encourages them to grow. But this idea like, hey, we can only laser focus on this degree work, don't worry about anything else, don't worry about going into the details or anything like that, that's not really healthy. And saying don't worry about that now, just focus on the work, I think that's kind of a cop-out. We have to use that as an opportunity to grow too. So when someone's asking that question, we have to say, I don't know, but I'll find out the answer. We have to be willing to say that. And come back the next time you meet with an answer. Or at least say, hey, I don't know everything, but this is what I've learned so far. Because as a teacher, it's just as much of an opportunity for you to grow as it is for this person that you're teaching. I'd also say slowing down.
I think a cop-out's the wrong wording.
What do you think it should be?
I don't know, because it's not a cop-out on my part to tell somebody to get through it. For me, I can talk on anything. On any given part of any of the degrees, I can go into a lake depth of information as opposed to the kiddie pool that most people are in. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that they need to go into that lake depth at that moment. I think that they need to, if we want to, let's wade around in the kiddie pool. Mm-hmm. And that way it gives them some idea of what they're learning, especially more of the face value stuff that they learn anyways, just by thinking about it.
Yeah.
But and maybe reinforce that, but I don't think you go into the deep end, because that takes you too far away from the surface stuff that's going to help you remember that. The surface stuff helps you remember what you're doing. The deep mm-hmm. stuff will detract from that.
Well, I don't know that I'm even necessarily. I agree. I don't know that I'm even necessarily saying like, hey, you have to, like, hey, let's stop everything and go down this rabbit hole for 2 hours, right? Because that's easy to do. But I think if someone has a question, it's fair enough to say, okay,
you should answer it.
You should answer it. If you don't know, you should take the opportunity to develop yourself, and you don't have to do it right then. Just between meeting sessions. Hey, I'm going to look into this myself, so I have some answers. And
yeah,
I think
the cop out guys are the ones that say it's all there in the monitor and that Bible right there.
Mm-hmm.
Get all your information right there, and then you'll know it all. That doesn't help anybody for anything.
That's definitely the biggest cop out.
That's a cop out.
I remember I made a post a few years ago on Texas Freemasons asking for book recommendations, Masonic book recommendations. And you wouldn't believe how many people are like, well, the only book you need is the Holy Bible there on the altar. Everything else is just fluff. You're just wasting money. So that's definitely a cop out. I agree. But so those are really the big things I think that stick with me. Also with like the opening and closing. Like we said before, this is to create a certain type of atmosphere and to get your mind geared for a certain type of thought process. I don't think there's a benefit to rushing that either. I've seen a lot of lodges just try to rush to it. If you're rushing through the opening and closing, then you're not going to get much more done than a business meeting, right? And like I said, you can join any organization and do that. So there's definitely value.
You can ask. Yeah, you can ask Josh. We're loud and proud in Goliad, and we make sure that we enunciate all of our words, and we're at a pace to where people understand what we're saying. Mm-hmm. We're also at a pace that you can tell we know the work. When you're able to give when you're able to add enunciation to your ritual and different fluctuations of voice impressions, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. When you can add those different nuances to the work as you're doing it, that's when you know somebody really knows the work. And that's where the benefit of our floor school comes in, is we have that opportunity to hone in on those skills. Yeah. We're not learning the memorization of that stuff at that moment. We already have learned that. In the floor school, we're learning how to really chisel away at that ashlar and really make it a beautiful piece of work. What do you say, Josh?
Well, I was wanting to make a comment of, Wednesday night before school, we had a certain brother sitting in the West. And, it's bad that when we have one of our brothers who's deaf in one ear and can't hear out the other, correcting the brother.
I know.
Sitting in
oh
the
my
West.
Gosh. His memorization, his memory is the worst I've ever seen in the world, ever. And he knew what I was supposed to say when I had my. That was so funny.
I wasn't going to mention any names, but that one brother in particular.
Did his last name rhyme with
prompted
Gates?
A few times. It might. But he had to be prompted a few times to remember his stuff in the West. So,
it's been a long time since I sat in the West, though. I mean, it's.
Well, he's got this tendency to when we say rise, he does his hands like this for some reason. I'm not sure why, and so I actually going to submit a deal to the committee on work to see if they won't add that to the work.
Yes, they need to see my. Yeah. They need to see my work to appreciate it. They definitely. Exactly. Except it's
that's
more of a.
That's pretty much.
It's more of a gospel church kind of way. Not quite the jazz hands. I'm going to ask Brother Peters.
I'm going to ask Brother Peters next time I see him at a forum if we can add that to the work and consider that. So that'd be a pretty cool deal.
Here's a funny piece of Masonic improvement trivia. Aside from the Lexington, Dennis and I have never actually sat in lodge together. Ever.
This is true. And you've never seen me do any work.
No, we've never been in a degree together, like where we were actually working in the degree. And I don't really count the Lexington because the format is so different, like with the way the audience sits and everything. It's not like a traditional lodge room. And so, like, we've never participated in any of the work together. And we've been doing, what is this, year 3 we've been working together?
Yeah.
I think so.
If not longer, wasn't it before COVID? No, it was. We went through COVID doing this, didn't we?
Well,
I'm not sure.
No, it was right after COVID.
Okay,
well,
so
Justin, I've sat in lodge Brother Yates and with him doing a degree, and trust me, you're not missing much.
David Lawson asked about Grand Lodge. That's fair. We did go to Grand Lodge together. I don't think we ever sat together at Grand Lodge though.
You better hide before that blackness. Man,
But
damn.
We've never done a degree.
Can't go
or anything
anywhere
like that.
No, but he's right. And I actually requested that we go through the opening and closing because here at this lodge, we're fixing to start a floor school. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about it. And now, I mean, nothing's official yet, but we've been talking about it and all the officers want to. So we're going to work on forming a floor school there. And I want to be prepared before we start that. Mm. And that's why I wanted to do that, because I hadn't sat in the actual chair in a while. I will practice this stuff, but I always practice it as the master. But I say every part as I'm going through and practicing. But that's not the same as sitting in there with people and actually hearing if somebody makes a tad bit of a mistake, and then you still have to do your part right. So yeah. It really makes a difference to practice with your brothers.
I've experienced that issue when conferring degrees, because I can go through it all in my head, particularly like the obligation. But when you actually are giving the obligation, you're not just repeating the whole thing, right? You gotta break it up, and the candidate doesn't always hear, or they get the words wrong or something, and that throws me off. So that's I know exactly what you're talking about. What's up, Trenton?
Yeah. And what made me what brought that up the other day when I asked if we could do that is that I was at a different lodge down in Corpus, and the district instructor was sitting in the west, and he had a really hard time. He went into he got caught up for some reason. He got caught up, and then everybody started talking, trying to tell him stuff, and half of it was wrong. He's looking directly at me, looking for instruction, and I just sat there and looked at him because everybody's mouthing off, and I didn't want to be part of that crowd. It was so disruptive and so emblematical of what you should not do in a lodge. So that's why I asked if we could practice it the other day, so I'd be ready.
You bring up something I think is really important. It's probably not the most important thing, but I would say, especially if you're going to be going into the East for the first time this year when elections come around, probably one of the best things I could suggest is before you open your meeting, say, this guy is going to be my prompter for the ritual work. And everyone else, just shush. Because exactly what you said, because there's nothing worse than getting 20 prompts and not one of them are right when you're trying to remember the work, right? Even if no one says anything, it's more helpful than getting 20 pieces of bad advice.
Yes. And I don't care if you're the district instructor or the committee on work guy. If you're not the one who's chosen to be that prompter, then keep your mouth shut. Mm-hmm. You don't have any business interfering with the lodge. It's up to the lodge and those brothers that choose their people to help them out.
Well, as district instructor, even if, so say I'm sitting in a lodge and the worship master did not appoint somebody, if he's stumped, I still wait. Like, do you want help? Because there's nothing more annoying than people just blurting out things from the sidelines. It's disruptive.
Yeah.
And so even
sometimes you just need them.
I don't blurt it out unless you look at me and say, what's the next word? And then I'll help you. But I'm not just going to blurt out things.
Yeah. Another good idea, and I've seen it in different lodges, is having a guy up in the east right here on the right-hand side of the master there to prompt, whisper wise counsel in their ear. Mm-hmm. And you can have somebody at each station doing the same thing, just there for that brother, just in case. So if you have enough people that know the work in your lodge that can do that, that's not a bad idea to ask them to just sit next to them so that they can do it quietly. Yeah. Josh, did you have something? I saw you pop in there, so You probably had something to say. Sorry about that.
Oh no, I was just shaking my head in agreement that it's. I think part of it is we all know we're guilty of it at one point when someone's stumped and we just want to hurry up and say the word, but we have to remember that we are not always the one that needs to speak, like you were talking about before, Dennis. It needs to be someone that someone designates during the either degree work or during the meeting that this is the person.
Yeah.
So I have a tendency of popping off sometimes too, and just here's the word, and it's like, no, stop, that's not your job. So, but I think that's in every lodge, and we all have that tendency to do it to help that brother out.
I think we've all done that. I think we've all also have offered the wrong words before, right? I don't.
Speak for yourself. I've never had a word wrong
Yeah.
in this conversation.
Excuse me? Do we need to go back to the conversation we had a minute ago about last
Right. You know, I think,
Good.
you know, I'm looking at Josh, and he's been an excellent senior deacon. I was senior deacon for a long time. It was Don Angel at first. Don passed it on to me, kind of, and then after me, when I started getting real busy, then Scott took it over. Scott did an excellent job, and now it's Josh. Josh is the senior deacon now. He's the go-to in our lodge for senior deacon on the degrees, and I think that really the best relationship to have is the senior deacon and the master, because they're working together in this, and he's the excellent prompter for any of them. While he's taking that candidate around, if somebody gets stumped and he knows that, then he can kind of whisper it to them without, you know, making a big issue of it or mouth it even. Especially when you're right there in front of them at the obligation, you can kind of mouth the next word and they'll get it, and they'll pick up from there without having to disrupt. So really in degrees, I think the senior deacon is the best opportunity to be that person to help the lodge.
Yeah, we actually had that happen. We put on a fellow craft a couple weeks ago, and we had a brother sitting in the South that really, he knew it, but he wasn't really confident with it. He's like, so I had to, prompt him a few times, but he got through it and everything like that. I enjoyed doing the senior deacon. I think that's better than doing a conferral personally, but that's just me.
Yeah. It's
I
my
enjoy
favorite
that part.
too. Yeah, it's my favorite part too. That's why I haven't worked any degrees since you took over, because you just ruined it for me. No.
You haven't worked any degrees because you're too busy going to Scottish Rite is what you've been doing. That's just,
and
you're
every
too busy
other
traveling around the state and doing your talks than you're doing anything else. So let's just get that.
Hey, I'm going to Blue Lodge. It's just not our Blue Lodge that I'm going to. So don't throw me to the wolves yet, because I'm still going to Blue Lodge. Go ahead, Jason.
So I told you I was here in the file room,
Yes.
such as it is at Guadalupe Lodge. So I came across a couple of interesting items, because what we're trying to do is there's a whole bunch of like Grand Lodge proceedings, Grand Commander proceedings, which are okay, but not really that interesting unless you just like reading bunches of names and resolutions and stuff. But first thing I found was an entire 30-volume series on basically Masonic education. The first book I picked up was a history of initiations, and in 12 essays that were talked about the Druids, the Persians, the Gothics.
My gosh. Yeah, I want that set.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, you need to take a picture and send it to me so I can start looking for all the copies.
Yeah. Well, can you also hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one that I found is McCoy's Masonic Manual. It's kind of a small book, but basically it's essentially a lodge monitor. But if you know anything about the York Rite, you know that the first 3 degrees of our degrees are York Rite degrees. So this manual actually goes through EA, Fellowcraft, Master Mason, then through the Royal Arch degrees, and then the Commandery orders. And one of the things you'll find this particularly interesting, Dennis, is it has the Knights of the Red Cross, There's a little editor's note at the bottom that says, Knights of the East and West or Knights of the Sword is more correct title for this grade.
Yes.
That's basically the Scottish Rite.
Yes,
and
the 15th degree.
The other interesting thing for those of us that are in the York Rite, it goes Knights of the Red Cross, Knights Templar, and then Knights of Malta. So
that's because the Templar were actually before Malta, because supposedly they went to Malta afterwards to hide out, right? Yeah, I mean that's the way it should be.
Right, but yeah, I'm just saying, like, the way that our degrees run, Knights of Malta goes first and then Knights Templar. This one in his manual, it goes Knights Templar and then Knights of Malta. Anyway, just thought it was interesting. We're trying to pull out actual historical or, actually pertinent books out of this, because that 30 set volume was sitting right up there, laying flat. I thought it was just another set of like Grand Lodge proceedings or something like that. I pull them down, and it's like this volume from like 1855.
Oh my god!
This 30, and they're falling apart, and so I've got them out in our. So what we're doing is we're putting together an actual library, and this is them down here.
Nice.
Which, again, it's one of those things like, they're falling apart, but ultimately, if they sit up there and nobody knows what they are, and nobody looks at them, then great.
So. Something that I have thought lodges should do, if they can raise money to paint the building or whatever, why can't they raise money to get a book scanner? Because they're different, right? It's not a regular scan machine. It's an upright, looks almost like those film things from years ago where you put the little plastic and you wrote on it with that wipe off pin, and for that,
it's called an overhead projector.
Yes, that's what it's called. So simple. But anyways, get one of those book scanners and scan that library that you have. As if somebody's going to pick out a book and read it, tell them, hey, while you're doing this, read it here in the library and scan it while you read it. As you flip the page, go ahead and scan that section, and then just do it that way.
I think there's a lot of guys, especially history buffs, that still weep about the loss of the Library of Alexandria, right? But how many lodges have rare books that are just sitting there on shelves, getting eaten by silverfish, falling apart? That's the modern day equivalent, I think. You have all these just fantastic jewels that were bought by some brother or donated at some time, or maybe a brother passed away and the family didn't know what to do with it, and so they brought the books to the lodge. And I mean, they're rare or extremely uncommon, or they're common at the time and they're rare now, and they just sat there being completely untouched. I think that says a lot about us as far as being intellectuals. But then also that's just so sad that we have, and I'm not calling out Jason, but that we have offices that look like that, where I mean, because it's not just one secretary, right? It's a generational thing. It takes a lot of people a long time for something to get that way.
Well, I cleaned out our foyer.
Do what?
You're doing a great job, Jason.
Yeah, you're doing great.
I said I'm trying.
I did the same thing in my year as master. I went up there and cleaned up the foyer and organized all the books and everything. I actually had to decide which books would stay inside a bookcase with closed doors, and which ones would be visible to the public, because there are a lot of old books back there, and a lot of them are old York Wright books that we have. But the thing is that they're falling apart so bad that we really need to just scan them. We don't need to do anything else but just scan them. And I mean, the bindings are so bad they need to be redone anyway. So we might as well cut those bindings off and just put them on a scanner and scan them page by page.
I think a lot of old minute books would benefit from getting scanned too before they're lost completely.
Well, yeah, they absolutely should. I mean, that's why all lodges really should have a scanner. Since we have that technology now, we should all have a book scanner. You can get a really decent one for $1,000. And if you can't pull together 10 guys to give you $100 to invest in your lodge, then maybe you need to go join another lodge.
Well, the thing is, even so, the thing about the old minute books is a lot of them are made from leather and things
Brother
like
Hoff,
that.
I hope you get it. I saw that. I read that, and I hope you get it. I think that they do need it.
Yeah,
for sure.
But even the text itself, even if the quality of the book is intact, the text itself it lightens with time. With I don't know if it's especially with pencil, but sometimes the ink, it seems also like it gets really hard to read over time. So if you can read it now, if you can scan it. And some of these newer scanners with the right software, they have that AI where it can actually recognize the words, and you can create searchable documents.
I was reading what Brother Lowe wrote.
Oh yeah,
he's talking about the Grand Annual Communication that's coming up this week.
Man, yeah, I really wanted to go to that. That's gonna be pretty sweet.
We're leaving on Wednesday. Yeah, we're leaving on Wednesday, and then staying in Pecos, Texas, that night, and then going to Carlsbad Caverns the next morning, and then heading over. We should get there right after all the business meetings are taking place with all the different committees and stuff. So
I see Kohenke's already over there.
Do what?
I said I saw Kohenke's already over there.
Oh, he's already in New Mexico?
He was actually at Carlsbad Caverns earlier today.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I assume he's for the grand session. That's where he's at.
Yeah. Well, maybe not, because his son is stationed over there, I believe.
Oh, at Cannon Air Force Base?
Yeah.
Man, that's rough. I almost got stationed there. It's not a pretty base. So
I would love to be there in New Mexico. I know where it is. It's 10 hours from anywhere, but I mean, that's just awesome. That just being in that vicinity close to Roswell, man,
it's out of this world, man.
Out of this world. Word.
Nice. So, I said we were going to give people a chance to talk. We really do so. So does anyone have anything they want to say about the slowing things down, or just comments in general?
Yeah, I'm going to mute my phone so that I don't get tempted.
Yep.
I got a little bit of something to say. I've been sitting here thinking about, from the beginning of what y'all were talking about opening and closing, to the slowing things down, to, and some of the stuff that Dennis wrote in that lesson that he did at the Alamo, talked about the checkered pavement, about, there's black squares and there's white squares. Some of us are black squares and some of us are white squares, but we're all brothers. And slowing down and knowing that we're all different, and that's what makes us so great. We work together, to help each other. Some people's strengths are my weaknesses and my strengths are their weaknesses, and so forth. But also the checkered pavement has got a ribbon of black around it that, reminds me of the grand architect that's holding us all together. And slowing down to think about all that type of stuff. I did have a question, though, is, you get some of these guys that come in here that want to be a Mason, and they take it too slow. So slow that they go past their year and then they quit showing up. Should we as members of the lodge be pursuing them once they're initiated to continue to try to push them through, or just just every so often just send them a message saying, "Hey, I'm here if you need me," or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what to do in that situation.
I think if you're slowing it down from the very beginning, like if there is a petitioning process and you're taking time to get to know this guy before he even actually gets a petition and starts going through the degrees. If he's doing that, and I think if a lodge, like if you say, look, if you join, this is what we're about, and if you receive your degrees, it is expected that you will go all the way through your masters. You will complete it, and if you do not, you will be a brother, and we will be reaching out to you, and doing everything we can to bring you back into the fraternity, like back into practices. So there's no, so you lay out that expectation from the beginning, like, look, once you're here, you're family, and we're going to treat you like family, and until you just tell us just to go to hell and never call again, we will call, right? And
That's what I feel obligated to do. Like I feel obligated to call them and like say, "Hey, man, I'm here for you. I want you to get through this, and I'll help you however you want." But that's it. Just I feel called to do that.
I think it's all about laying out. I think a lot of people are hesitant to do what you're saying because they don't feel like they're harassing the guy, right? So
Right.
you're laying out the expectations from day one.
Or they don't want to coddle them.
Or they don't want to coddle them, yeah. But you're laying out that expectation. Say, look, if you start, you're going to finish. This is how we do things here. And if you have any hesitation, any doubt in your mind that you do not want to be a master mason, don't come back. Don't take the petition. Don't fill it out. Don't come back unless you know 100% that if you get that degree, you're all in. Because if you get your EA and you go past your year, if you go past your year, you go past your year. But if you're not going to want us calling you and doing everything we can to bring you back and keep you moving forward, then don't go forward, because that's how we do it here. We're family, and we hold each other accountable. And I don't think it's so much calling as it is holding one another accountable at that point, because then you're saying, look, this is the standard, this is the bar, and you are expected at this lodge to at least meet this bar. And if you cannot, we will lift you up. We'll do everything we can to lift you up. Otherwise, maybe this isn't the lodge for you, or maybe this just isn't a fraternity for you.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I'll give somebody else an opportunity. I feel a little bit different than Justin. Okay, Josh went dark, so I guess he's not going to talk.
Well, I was just going to say that, there's a fine line between messaging someone about it and hounding them, as we said a minute ago, because you can definitely make someone feel hounded. I know of one instance here in the past year that a brother kind of backed off, and another brother was hounding, and it just got to the point where it was like, just stop texting, I'll come when I come. So we need to make sure and that's why some people may feel hesitant about it, is you have to make sure you're on that fine line of sending a message and checking on them versus sending a message every day going, come back, or something like that. So we have to be careful that we're walking that fine line of hounding and encouraging someone to come to lodge.
Yeah.
I would, now here's my different perspective. In having that discussion, like you were talking about, Justin, I wouldn't have the discussion like you would. I'd have it a little bit different. I would say, okay, we've got a lot of man hours going into this. We're working on, we're here to help. We're here to help you succeed. But it takes a lot of effort on your part. The very least you can do, if you decide this isn't for you, is to pull one of us aside, whoever you feel most comfortable with, and tell us exactly why. If you just did not get what you thought you were going to get out of this, and you feel like it's a waste of your time, then God bless you. I hope you have safe travels, because I'm not going to come back and try to talk you into it, because you basically made up your mind, right? And if that's the case, the door is always open. Just make sure you come back to this lodge to open that door again, because you have to. But as long as you're upfront with us going out, it's a lot easier for us to understand when you decide to come back in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I feel, because sometimes brothers get into it and they realize it's not something that they want to devote that much time to in their life, because it is a commitment.
I agree.
And they think it's going to be easy going in, and we don't communicate that well enough to them on the way in, and then when they see the workload, then they realize, well, man, that's taken away from my time with my kids and my wife and all this kind of stuff, and I really don't have that much time to afford.
Mm-hmm.
So you let them know that the only thing I ask is, if you decide you don't want to continue coming back, just be honest with me and tell me why. Because later on, we're going to have another brother that's going to come in just like you, and he's going to feel the same way that you do. And hopefully we will have a different culture in our lodge that will make you feel like it's worth your time to join or to stick with it, as opposed to you feeling like it's not worth your time.
And to
like
your
the value's not there.
And to your point, if a brother goes missing and nobody from the lodge can explain why he doesn't come anymore, I don't really blame the guy.
Right. You don't have that relationship, right? You never developed that relationship that you should have.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the mentorship program is so important that we put out a few years back. And I think that it's something that everybody should do in every lodge, so that they have that trust between this one guy. And it's usually not the DI or the lodge instructor. It's usually somebody else that matches the qualifications of the mental and spiritual level of the brother that came in, of the fellow that came in. That way you can talk, and there is that kind of trust factor from the beginning, because you're very similar in personalities and whatnot. So it's easier for that brother to confide in you. Yeah. And that's what we want, right? All we want is truth in this. I don't want any one of you to lie to me to make me feel better. I want you to tell me the truth. I want you to tell me your truth. Mm-hmm. That way, just like Brother Hoff was saying with the black and white, if all the brothers that I'm hanging with are the black checker, where am I getting better in this? If they're a white checker and then they say whatever I want to where I feel more comfortable as a black checker, I'm not getting anywhere with that. I need that opposite to help me to understand and to grow. And so I think that we have to have that honesty and truth between each other.
Yeah, I agree. Kadeem, do you have something? Okay. Okay.
Well, I'll make an observation back to Dennis's point, about explaining the time needed to learn to work and do things like that. I think it goes back to the earlier conversation we had with the investigation committee. That goes back to telling that candidate up front, here's the commitment. I personally will tell you that when I had my investigation committee done, I'm not going to say it wasn't completely explained correctly, but I probably could have went to more detail of the time needed to do the work. When I got initiated in 2017, I had a different job and was living a different part of where our lodge is at now. And it wasn't until I moved here to Goliad that I was able to start committing the time that was needed to become a master mason and stuff like that. So, that goes back to when we start talking to these candidates that, you need to understand here's a time commitment that's going to be needed for a good long while until you get through the master's degree to learn the work, and then on top of that, after the master's degree, all the other stuff you're going to learn. So that goes back to that as well.
That's one of the things I love about Goliad in the floor school is that it shows the brothers the time commitment that the diligent brothers of Goliad put in. You know, while they're learning the work downstairs, they see all the brothers going upstairs to hone in on their trade, on the craft in floor school. So, you know, that kind of sets a precedent for, you know, what's going to happen with them after they get through all these degrees, is that that Wednesday is the day that they'll be here for improving themselves in that. It's an expectation, and that's a passive expectation too. We don't even have to say anything. They just see it, and then they kind of get this feel, and they know, and then they start listening to these brothers, and they realize, okay, these are the leaders in this fraternity, and you know, if I want to get the most out of this, I'm going to do what these other guys do because they're passionate about what they're doing. Go ahead, Brother Hoff.
Yeah, so I mean, it was just that whole slowing down the process is what I had to do to myself after I got through the memory work, because I really didn't understand a whole lot about what I just did, and going back and really diving a little deeper really helped me to fall in love with this Freemasonry, really. So I agree with what y'all are saying, is just really kind of slow down. And I don't even want to go do any of the other independent body stuff, because I feel like there's still so much I could do at the Blue Lodge level that I don't really have time to. I don't want to spread myself too thin. I want to learn everything I can about the Blue Lodge first, because I'm only 2 years in, and so I got plenty of time, I think.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What we got, Kadeem?
Go ahead, Kadeem.
Brother Lowe.
Well, sorry guys, just catching up to everything, being at work, but you know, I heard the word that y'all said, and what caught my attention was the fact that, you know, you have these guys that come in, and as Jesse was, you know, you talk to that guy, you're like, hey, you're gonna have to commit, and if you're not here for that, then, you know, don't even bother coming in. Well, I take my situation where one lodge rejected me, didn't even take a vote on me, and the second lodge, you know, I got admitted, and I'll go ahead and say it, but the guy signed for me right there and then. They just asked me a few questions and signed right there and then. Sure, it didn't turn out to be a bad thing for me, nor for the lodge, but how do you detect who's who, or how do you know this is gonna be a good pick for the lodge? You know, how? That's my question. Shouldn't you take a bet on guys?
Sorry, what were we saying? What was the last thing you said?
No, it says, shouldn't you take a bet on guys? You know, be like, okay, we're gonna give you everything we can.
Yeah.
See how that turns out.
I think regardless of how long your vetting process is, you're always going to be taking a bet on people, right? There's no surefire way. There's no I mean, you can have this guy coming for a year, and there's no 100% guarantee that he's gonna follow through like you hope he will. I think just like outside the lodge, like your lodge is your friend group, right? And the way your friend group changes over time is new people are introduced, and either they get along great with it or they don't. And I think giving that vetting process is a great way to determine your Masonic friend group. I say Masonic friend group, but all my friend groups are Masonic. But it's a great way for your Masonic friend group to determine, hey, is this guy a good fit for us, or is he not? And I would say there's like a checklist, but I would say at the very minimum, can really, I would say at a minimum for this vetting process, there's a few things you're looking at. I'm not saying you have to be best friends by the time that 6 months is over, but I would say, like, if you're inviting him to your lodge dinners, he should at least be able to make the majority of them, and he should be able to. He shouldn't come across he should be able to come 6 months without talking about the Illuminati, the Rothschilds, or reptilians or something weird like that, and he should be able to carry on a enjoyable conversation with the brothers, at a minimum. If he can check all those boxes, if he shows the dedication, if he can get along with everybody, and he just is not an obvious like conspiracy nut, then we could start looking at moving forward.
What do you think, Dennis?
I think that if we were to, golly, I think if we were to go through the process a little bit better and be intentional with what we discuss with those brothers, and that's where having a mentor system is good, because then they know what they should be asking, they know what they should be talking about, and not just about lodge and what we do, but talking about the brother or the man and his family and his associations, and in digging and asking those qualifying questions about his life, you get to know whether he's going to really be a fit or not. You know, that's the key to all this that I think we miss out on a lot. And I think that's what we should be more focused on, is being intentional with those processes that have been developed through time and through the time and patience of many HR type executives. They, that's what they do. They get you to lower your guard by talking about the things that you love, to find out about you. And I think that we need to have a better approach at doing that in what we do. I think it's imperative that we do that, and we should be the listeners. We should be able to listen to what these guys are saying, so that we can pick up on those little key words that exemplify tin hat or on the right path, right? Yeah. And I'd like to say something to Brother Hoff's note earlier, is that in the slowing down, you fell in love with the craft. And I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. And that's where we lose people, in my opinion, is that they're not in love with the craft. They're not in love with the ideals that Freemasonry has to offer. And I think that's the benefit of slowing down, is that it gives people the opportunity to actually, dig in a little bit and actually fall in love with the beauty that we have to offer.
Yeah, I was also.
I think you're right on the money there.
I was going to say slowing down is what brought me back too. So I agree. The concept of maybe Freemasonry shouldn't be a freeway. It's more of a country road kind of approach. Did you have anything else, Dennis? I didn't mean to cut you off. It seemed like a timely time to interject on that, because I agree with you.
No, that's fine.
I good. I also wanted to because Dennis made a good point in response to Kadeem. Keep in mind, like Kadeem, you said, should we take a bet on the candidate? But keep in mind, they're also taking a bet on us. And it's just as much a time for them to learn if we're a good fit for them, for that individual, as it is for us to determine if they're a good fit for us. And Dennis mentioned being intentional, and I think if you're just inviting them every month without really being intentional, then you're kind of losing some of the opportunity, because this is your chance to say, look, this is how we do things, and you don't have to lay it out like water hose, like a fire hose, the first meeting they come to. But like, look, just a little bit every meeting. Like, look, this is how we do things here. This is kind of how we, take a little bit of time every month to just really explain. This is what our lodge is about. This is our mission statement. This is our vision for Freemasonry. This is how we do things here, yada yada yada. That way they can say, hey, look, this lodge isn't really the direction I want to go, because it's a two-way street. It's not just as much us betting on them, but they're also betting on the lodge. If you just come in the first day and get that petition, you don't really know much about that lodge. You're taking a bet. Is this really the lodge I'm looking for? Is this the kind of Freemasonry I'm looking for? They don't necessarily know, and they don't necessarily even realize that there's different I hate to say it, but there's different approaches depending on the lodge. Like some lodge may feel like hey, we're just running things like a business meeting every month. Some lodges may say, hey, look, we're all just about fundraising. And really you can get to the nuance of what is and isn't Freemasonry, but every lodge has a certain approach that they take. And if you're looking for something and you're just going in blind without knowing, you might not get the Freemasonry you're looking for either. So we're looking for certain things out of candidates, but candidates are looking for certain things out of Freemasonry. And where they both meet is a successful lodge, because that means this lodge is bringing in people that it's retaining because it is offering what they're looking for, because they're slow and intentional about it. Otherwise, you're just throwing candidates at the wall and see what sticks. And that's not necessarily the best approach. Like most of us are here because obviously lodges took a bet on us and it was the right bet. But how many people did lodges take bets on before? Or how many people took bets on lodges and they walked away because they just assumed all lodges were the same?
So there's a couple of people in every lodge that are going to bet on the don't pass. So I'm just saying, there's those guys out there, and you got to keep them away from the new brothers.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know how many people play craps, but there's the pass bar, and then there's the don't pass, which is betting with the house, and you're betting against whoever's rolling or whatever. But there's always those guys that are always betting against them. So you don't want them to be around those guys because they may get heartbroken right up front. Mm-hmm. What you got, Trenton?
I was just going to piggyback off of that. We always say you get what you put in, but, like you were saying, it's really what the lodges put into the person as well. And, if we were really thinking about what's good for the craft and not what's just good for our lodge, if they weren't a fit for our lodge, but maybe we thought they were good for the craft, we could point them to another lodge that they might better suit it for. Mm-hmm. And I do always tell every candidate, not only to spend, the first 6 months at one lodge filling out those brothers, but to travel to every lodge in your area within, 10, 15, 20 miles, whatever you can do, because every lodge has a different culture, mm-hmm. and you'll come across different things that you may or may not like. And I know when I moved to the area, it took me a while, but I found my home over there with Kadeem Lowe and in Durant. So, you just got to venture out and find it. And then it is what we put into the candidate as well. So not just what they can put in for us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Go
ahead, Brother Lowe. Go, Brother Lowe.
I was going to say that I always wished, and that was even back when I was a candidate, if there was a rating system, like how you go on Google Maps and rate businesses and stuff like that, that would allow the candidate to be more informed, and the lodge to say, okay, well, you can go check out our ratings by other Masons that mm-hmm. visited or people that know about our lodge and see what's going on. That would much more like, and help people make an informed decision just as much as if you see two lodges and it's like, okay, the both lodges in my town have to talk to each other before I was even admitted to the second one, because they're like, well, we wanted to make sure you are not admitted to their lodge, or we want to see what's going on before we admit you. And it's like, well, they never took a vote on me, but things like that. So that's just food for thought.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've wondered about that before. That same thing, like if you could do because you see restaurants, they give restaurant stars. It's like,
oh no, that's all freaking bogus.
Well, can we rate them on Google? Like whenever the Google reviews.
I think
right. I think it's just like the Amazon reviews, man. The biggest pieces of garbage on Amazon have the best reviews, because they have people that are going to pump up those numbers.
Well,
they give out free products for 5-star reviews.
I don't think there's many 1-star lodges that are going to be pumping out reviews. Just saying. They're not on top of things enough. That's why they're 1 star anyway. Gnostic Man did say when he was a new Mason. Oh wait, wrong one. He said his jurisdiction has implemented a Westgate program, and it's really good. But if it did everything by the letter, it'd probably be a year before the aspirant got in.
Yeah. Well, and I can't complain about that either.
Yeah.
Because really, it's going to take a while before they stop saying what they think you want to hear and start saying what they really believe and what's really their truth.
Absolutely. That's the best way of putting it. Eventually they'll stop saying what they think you want to hear, and they'll open up and say what they really think. I think that's true. And here's the thing. Let's just say you have a 25-year-old guy and he's petitioning the lodge. Once he gets in, barring any unfortunate incident, he's going to have decades of Freemasonry. Decades. What's 6 months? What's a year?
Right. Well, in a lot of your European and especially Latin America lodges, well, not the lodges, well, their lodges themselves, they do different programs to prove your understanding of the degrees before you can go to another degree. But like in the Scottish Rite with those other areas, man, you can only do 1 degree, and then you have to wait a year and do another degree, and then wait a year and do another degree. And that's how Pike wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted you to completely understand and be able to tell people that you understood it before you could go on to the next degree. Because it's that important.
So it would take 29 years if you just did 1 a year, going through all the Scottish Rite.
That's why it's such a big deal for some of these people to hit those milestones of the 4th, 7th, and then when you start really getting up there, man, when you hit the 18th degree and you're getting closer, I mean, that's a big deal to these guys. We're one of the only ones where, America's one of the only ones where you get all the accolades before you actually earn it. And that's a big reason why these other jurisdictions don't have a lot of respect for us to begin with.
Interesting. I would have done a year. I mean, I probably would have started a lot sooner, but
right.
I mean, geez, yeah. I mean, imagine by the time you get 32nd, like that would mean something. Like that.
Oh, yeah.
That dude's been doing it for 29 years. What's that?
Even other areas make you, if you're a 32nd degree Scottish Rite and you want to join a valley over in, let's say, Yugoslavia of all places. So you want to join over there, they're going to make you go through it all the way they do it before you can be a 32nd degree Yugoslavian Scottish Rite Mason. So that because they know that we do it so quickly and without real value in what we're doing. Go ahead, Jason.
Actually, I just got the Franken manuscript, which is the series of 25 degrees that the
it's the original
Scottish Rite. Yeah. So in there, did you read the number of years that was supposed to be between each degree? 25 was not an arbitrary number.
Right.
The number of years between each degree added up to 81. 9 times 9. So according to his system, the perfect amount of time was 81 years because it started out with 3, 5, and then so
basically
15 years
life
to get to Master Mason, and then to get to 25, it came to anyway. I mean, but then you go later on, and you're like, well, the time can be substituted by a vote of the lodge, whatever. So, if they show an understanding, but in his original envisioning, it was 15 years to Master Mason, because 357, and then it was to get to 25, the perfect number of 9 times 9, it was 80, 81 years. So you started when you were in your 40s like me.
Yeah.
You're never going to finish, but whatever.
So, like, Texas,
You're just a guppy, kid. Don't swim around in my pond.
you used to have to be 21 before you could petition. If we went by that approach, by the time you got your last degree, you would be 102 years old. I mean, granted, we got some.
Yeah, full life. Yeah.
I mean, we got lots of past masters that are close to that, but
Which is basically what, everybody says is you'll never know until that final degree. Anyways,
wow, man.
I think that's a little drastic, but that's
you're really I mean, most people don't live that long, so that's
I know. Yeah, that would suck being told that in a third world country that it's going to take you 81 years because they don't have the medicine to keep you alive for 81 years.
Yeah. Yikes.
What do y'all think about the rule with like the EAs and fellow craft can't talk in language? And, they
can't talk what?
That they cannot talk in lodge. They don't have they can't talk, and then they're the ones to actually do meal services at lodge until they get to be a master mason. What do y'all think about that?
Do you want to do this first, or you want me to?
You probably should go first because mine's going to be an unpopular thought.
I went through the degrees at a time when you couldn't even sit in lodge because all stated meetings had to be masters to open on the master's lodge, and I think there was definitely value in that because as an EA in fellowcraft, the title would be a knowledgeable brother, and we would spend that time outside in the dining room or whatever, going over the work. And between sessions, we would help clean up. And that would also teach us the importance of servant leadership. And so I don't agree with some lodges using EAs and fellowcrafts as
slave labor.
Unpaid labor. Like taking advantage of them in that way. But I do think, and I've said this before, I think there's value in starting someone off as a steward because it teaches them that importance of servant leadership. And so if you could start those lessons early on, like hey, we're going to go through the questions and answers, but we're going to tidy up in here at the same time. I think there's definitely some value in that. I don't really see value in as an EA or fellow, especially if you're. Okay, I'll just say it. I don't see value as an EA or fellowcraft in sitting in a stated meeting, and there's two reasons for that. First of all, if your lodge is just running business meetings, I mean, what are you missing out on? But secondly, as far as education goes, when you have good educators, I mean, granted, a good educator can keep in mind you have EAs and fellowcrafts and adjust their presentation accordingly. But I really don't like that, and I'm not saying me personally because I'll do it. But I don't like asking somebody to do it because sometimes the lessons they have in their presentation might have been like something important and it really hits on something in the masters that this guy's not ready to learn about. I don't see the advantage in rushing people into the stated meetings. It goes back to slowing down the process. Use that opportunity, teach them their work, teach them the importance of servant leadership, but there's no point in rushing them into the stated meetings. That will all come. They have a lifetime of Freemasonry to sit in business meetings and start the education that happens in those meetings.
Hold on just a second. I'm typing with one hand. My thoughts are not so dissimilar to yours, really. I mean, I don't know what degree, to what degree that you mean when you say they can't talk in a lodge. There's a reason we say don't tamper with untempered water. They really don't know what they're really into yet. And if they do, that's great. It really is. But there's value in the apprentice master relationship. And once you make somebody believe that they're just as valuable to the lodge as the master, and they haven't even finished their work yet, as a person, yeah, they're valuable, but they're not a member of the lodge yet. They're not a contributor to the well-being of the lodge. They're actually taking resources from the lodge at will, at their pace. And so do they really have that much of an opinion on what we say and do? Now, that being said, I definitely wouldn't tell one not to, if it's like better business practices or something like that. If they have some ideas, and I say, put them forth. That's awesome. But to have them believe that they are an integral part of our day-to-day survival, that's a little bit too far. You have to have those boundaries and understanding, or it comes the point to where this person thinks that they know too much and they don't need to learn anything else from us. That's what I've always been afraid of with EAs being in all the lodges and stuff. Is that very thing that once they get in there and they can say and do whatever they want to do as an entered apprentice, what's the motivation to become a master mason? Just to be able to vote? If I can already shift the culture of a lodge just with my voice, why do I need to vote? Why do I ever need to be a member? What master is going to teach me more than I already know if I already think I'm the smartest guy in the room? There's a certain bit of humility that comes with being an apprentice. And even if we're the smartest guy in the room, there's a certain amount of humility there that comes with being an apprentice to other people. And that's one of the biggest lessons that we have to know. We have to learn as we go. And I don't like the idea of, having them be slave labor by any chance, but I do think that they should be contributing as servant, as brothers of service, and assisting in the kitchen and stuff like that. I certainly would never ask them to be on a committee to sweep the floors, or you're my cleanup guy because you're the EA, you're the lowest in the group. I would never do that. I would never make anyone feel less than by saying that. But I would certainly encourage them to just get to know the lodge, get to know the members, get to know the culture, because we already have too many people that come in, too many brothers that come in, and as fresh masters, we want to change everything. Mm-hmm. Nothing that they're doing is right. We need to change it all because it's just ludicrous and they're all wrong, and it needs to be. They don't even realize until 5 years later that all the thoughts they had were completely asinine, and they should have kept their mouths shut. That was me. I had all the answers, and it wasn't until 5 years later I realized, oh, my answers were a bunch of crap. I'm glad nobody listened to me. They all nodded and smiled and just said, bless your heart. But they never acted on what I said.
This idea of EAs and fellowcrafts serving the lodge, helping out the kitchen, it makes me think back to basic training in the Air Force. Granted, it's the Air Force, so it is what it is. But I know this is even more rigorous and stricter in like the Marines and the Army and things like that. And what I'm about to say is that, like, when you go into basic training, you have your barracks, and your squadron is responsible for keeping your barracks immaculately clean. There was a copper plate when you cross the door, the threshold, and nobody steps on that plate. It's supposed to be immaculately clean. And at the end of basic training, when your families would come visit, I remember guys in a squadron saying, "Hey, don't step on that plate when you come in," to complete civilians. It's because we had worked so hard in keeping this place clean that we had developed a sense of pride in this. Really, in hindsight, we kept it clean, but it was inhabited by like 50 guys. So I mean, it smelled like body odor, and it was just cinder blocks and linoleum tile, right? Like nothing.
Yum, gym locker.
And we were
yes.
This is early 2000s, and we were all in our like early 20s, so it smelled like body odor and Axe body spray, right? That was the smell of it.
Oh man!
It smelled
Good
like,
Lord! The only thing worse than body odor.
So it's not about like us versus them as far as like masters versus EAs. It's about developing that pride in the fraternity and in the building and getting these guys like, look, this is we're all in on this. This is our building. And if we don't take care of it, nobody's going to. And there's so many lodges. Let me back up. Maintenance is inevitable with every building, but upkeep can offset maintenance.
Maintenance, yes.
Or it can make it less expensive. And also upkeep can catch things before they become a big problem. This is why, like in Japan, like they'll take their entire business, their entire company will go outside and spend the day picking the weeds off the sidewalk, right? It's small things and details matter, and upkeep goes a long way. And so this servant leadership isn't like, hey, this is a new guy, we're going to make him do all this grunt work. It's not about putting these guys through like this trial where you have to do all this grunt work and like you have to work your way out of it. It's about developing this culture where like, hey, we are here to serve our lodge. The worshipful master should be the first guy to stand up and pick up everybody's paper plates or whatever, their trash and throw it away for them. Right.
I still do that.
Yeah, me too. Like, but this is because we have to develop these things early on.
Yeah, I do that at other lodges. It's just kind of ingrained in. But I think you've got a point there, and that's kind of what I wanted to say is that really they should be a part of that upkeep, but they're not a part of the maintenance, right? Mm-hmm. So when they want to give all this advice and all this, just let them know, hey man, we have opportunities for you to help in these areas. Help us figure out a way to be more efficient and effective with these things. Yeah. If you really want to provide input, help us with these things, because this is where we all started. We all started in serving our brothers, and these are the ancient traditions of Masonry. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't go that far because that's not true. But these are the traditions of the lodge to uphold the integrity of the lodge, and that is that when you come in, you help out, and in these ways, these are opportunities for you to build your love for the lodge, just like Hoff said. Build your love for Masonry, build your love for the lodge. We feed our minds, our spirits, but then we also condition our minds and spirits with the work that we put into our lodge. We become more vested as we do this. So I think that there's great benefit to that, and I'm just amazed that we have so many people in the military and our lodges look like crap. Yeah. With what you just described, I'm surprised that we do, because it seems like they would understand that before anybody else would, and make sure that there were processes in place to take care of that burden.
I think if that was part of the lodge culture, when they were coming in, they'd absolutely snap to it, right? They would associate that, even if it's unconscious, and they would have that approach. But lodges aren't doing this because we're so apologetic about everything. Like, oh yeah, you might have to do this. You might just like, look, new guys, you need to learn this. It's intentional. We want you to learn servant leadership. Servant leadership is the most effective type of leadership, in my opinion. So, and I think most modern research on leadership would agree with that. So why are we not being intentional about teaching these people these things? And if they have an ego issue that keeps them from doing that, then it's more important that they do this from day one. Because if you carry that ego with you to the east, that's going to kill your lodge. It's going to kill it. So we have to.
Oh yeah, we have all kinds of brothers that love to tell us how to do everything, and then as soon as the lodge is done, they're the first ones out the door.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot get them to stand and wait for the Bible to be closed. You know, I always do, and many brothers in my lodge do that. That's the final ritual is the senior deacon going to attend to the Bible, right?
Yep.
And so we should stand there and appreciate that until it's done, and then we can walk out of our station. But you have so many leaders that they're just the first ones to bolt out the door to get home. They're not even going to have refreshments with us later or anything like that. They're just bolting to go home, and they consider themselves leaders.
Yeah.
But I can tell you the most effective leaders I've seen have been the ones that bolt right out the door and go to wash the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that the lodge is picked up before they go home. Everybody does a once over. You can tell who they are because they're always doing the once over before they leave to make sure everything's taken care of. When I was senior deacon, that's what I did. I would always make sure that my lodge was immaculate and perfect before I walked out the door. All my aprons and my jewels were in the right places. Everything was where it was supposed to be.
It's important you keep your jewels in the right place, Dennis.
I know. Every once in a while, I get them out of my wife's purse. Every once in a while.
Okay. But
no, that's, and I think that's important for people to know from the very beginning and not wait until you're, a master mason to tell them that, now we need you to take care of the lodge.
Yeah. Because by then it's with most people, it's probably too late. Like now that
you've already got those bad habits.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it comes down to with any organization, with anything new to a person. You have to start instilling the habits you want to see. It doesn't matter who they are or how old they are. You need to start reinforcing the behavior you want to see as a master mason. And so that's why it's so important from day one, like to really, anything you can do to reinforce a pride in your building, a pride in the fraternity, the vision, the mission statement of the lodge, where we want to go. You have to start reinforcing those things from day one. I would even say before they turn in their petition. Like if you have this process, this vetting process, I wouldn't say ask them to clean up or anything, but you can start just reinforcing. That's why I say be intentional and tell them what you're about, because you're reinforcing the expectations of what you want to see if they go all the way to the masters and they're a master mason. This is how I want this guy to behave. This is the mentality I want to cultivate. That's when you start cultivating from day one.
Yeah. You could also have were you going to read something online? Go ahead.
Well, I did, but I don't want to change the subject till we're ready. But there was
No, go ahead. We can talk about this all night long.
We could.
And just go in circles.
So there's a question, and I think this might actually be a pretty quick answer, but it never really is with this, is it? It's Perez Sinatra. He says, any thoughts on mouth to ear versus printed work?
Yes.
Yes, we do have thoughts on it. Do you want to go first, or do you want to let the IC answer first?
I'll let whoever you want to first.
Does anyone have, before me or Dennis hop in, does anyone here from the inner circle have thoughts? Printed versus mouth to ear? No? Going once?
Well, all right. So I came from New Jersey. This is Trenton, by the way. New Jersey, we had a cipher.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had to learn the cipher. A master had to be present. I had another guy going through it with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of happy we had a cipher. My instructor was my junior warden that year. He was a 27-year-old kid. He had a whole lot of life going on. He wrecked his car, kicked out of his dad's house, a lot of stuff going on. So he didn't have a lot of time for us as candidates. So having that cipher, once we learned it, we would get together at a master's house so that a master was present and was there to answer any questions. And then we were able to just teach each other the work. So by the time we got to the master to return the catechism, our instructor was forgetting his parts, and we were giving him the question that he was supposed to give us and then returning the answer. Mm-hmm. So I did like that, and the fact that I didn't have a lot of the same support that others get. Now moving to Texas and hearing that it's word of mouth, and I kind of wish I had that with the proper support. I think learning it that way would have been awesome. And I think I probably had a cipher because I needed one. I think it just happened to fall that way. But had I been here, I honestly, like in New Jersey, they have short form and long form, and they do long form now. And I'm glad. But having heard that there was short form, why would you ever want that? You know, I would only want the long form. So hearing that there is a mouth to ear over a cipher, I kind of would have rather had the mouth to ear versus a cipher. But I'm thankful I had it at the time.
It's interesting. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have something to share on that?
I do. Well, so after I became a master, diving deeper into the certificate stuff helped me. I drive. I'm an AC guy. I drive from house to house to house, and I use that drive time to practice my ritual work and just having the cipher to, make sure I'm saying the right words and remembering the right words as I'm driving. It definitely helped me get that A certificate whenever, within that first year of being a master. So it was highly useful for me.
Well, congratulations on that, by the way. That's not easy to get, especially when you're so new into the fraternity.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? I'll
go ahead and jump in.
You want to go first? Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Usually you're more verbose than I am, so and you offer a different perspective. So I would say there's two main times that you would see ciphers being used, or just printed work in general, and that would be for teaching people during degrees, and for actually opening and closing, like they're doing the ritualistic work. So I'll address both of those real quick. When we have a new brother going through the degrees, and we're telling him, hey, this work is important for you to memorize, but here I have it written down so I don't have to have it memorized. We're telling them that what you're memorizing is important, but it's not important enough for me to remember it. It's the same approach like when you have and I see this and I hate it. When you have a new guy just get his EA degree, and we're telling them, hey, you got some work to learn. It's going to be really important, but you're going to work with very knowledgeable brothers, and they're going to teach you this stuff. But we're going to take your time. But this is important that you learned. And then he's sitting there on the sidelines, and the officers can't even close the lodge and answer the questions without being prompted. It's the same thing. Like, we're telling this guy what he's learning is important, but the leadership of his lodge didn't think it's important enough to be familiar with it. There's a conflict there. And as far as like using the ritual to open and close, I'm going to use Yorkright as an example, because Yorkright doesn't have a cipher. It has plain text books, and they're in the building, they're in the room, and you see a lot of chapters of councils that cannot open or close or do any of the work without that printed work. Now,
you stole my argument.
When my granddad passed away, I inherited all of his Masonic stuff, and he actually had Yorkright ciphers. Like, it used to be an actual cipher, and you couldn't use it in lodge. You had to have it memorized. And I think that was kind of part of the reason that Yorkright has so many problems, is that you have a lot of these small chapters of councils that don't even know the work. And as a new Yorkright Mason, it was very disheartening to see that my chapter and council could not open from memory, and they did not know any of the signs or anything like that. So I think, and the issue is, once you let the cat out of the bag, you can't put it back in. Once you allow that stuff in the lodge, you can't go back because nobody knows it, right? There's only one David Rogers in Texas, right? He can't be at every chapter and council teaching everybody. Right? There's only so many knowledgeable brothers in Texas. They can't be everywhere at once. And when you introduce that, when you lower that bar, it becomes so hard to raise it back to where it needs to be. That's my thought.
I tend to agree. I like the way that Texas Blue Lodge does it, that we're allowed to have ciphers, but we're not allowed to have them in the lodge. That way, when we're doing the work, we should know it.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I'm a big proponent of the cipher for every Master Mason, because when you go to floor school, that's not your time to learn how to memorize the words. You should already have the words somewhat memorized. You're just going to learn how to put them into use. You're learning how to put them into practice, right? And that's the goal of floor school, not to sit trying to teach one guy and have one guy verbatim giving him every word after word while everybody else is just there to learn the floor work. This guy's sitting there taking up the entire time of the lodge, trying to memorize stuff that they should have had memorized on. And I believe in our system in doing that. And I think that, Justin, you're absolutely right that the Orc Rite proves how bad it is to have it. And I'm going to say the Scottish Rite is just as bad. I mean, we have monitors for San Antonio and a lot of other Scottish rites. We have monitors that we put the words on because it's not memorized. You know, there was a day when we had 100 people in every class, and so we could find all those ritualists that really had good memories to be in these degrees. But now we don't have that, and so you got a bunch of guys like me, and I'm the deep digger into theology. I'm not the guy that sits and spends my time memorizing words, and God bless you guys. Y'all are needed. Y'all need to be there. But I'm not that guy. So I would have to give up being a degree master if that were the case in San Antonio. The day that they say, I put my foot down, you have to know your work or you cannot be in a degree, then I'm going to be in trouble. Dallas is a beautiful example of knowing the work and being able to put on degrees. They grade themselves on how well they deliver the degree. And if they don't get a good enough grade, then there's real discussions on if you're going to stay in that degree team. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. But we've lowered the bar on ourselves. Now in San Antonio, we're trying to build, and we're building fast. So we're up to 24 of the 29 degrees being performed in June. And that's a pretty big feat, considering that, you know, back when Jason and I went through, we were still at doing like 15 degrees. In fact, we were the 15th degree, but they were still only doing 15 degrees on the stage, and the rest of them were done by communication. So we've come a long ways, but until we really get the hang of it, and I'm getting better at my part in the 15th degree, and you know, I couldn't do it without the monitor still, but I'm getting better at it to where if I have my back turned to it, I can ad lib just a little bit, and it's still a good degree. But I kind of like the way we do it in Blue Lodge, that, you know, we have the ciphers, but we have to memorize it.
I'll say that. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Dallas did have I didn't look. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention, but they did have. I think it was projected, like behind.
Yeah,
everybody.
they have the words in case you need it. But if they see you looking up there, then they know you don't know the word.
Yeah, they're not just reading the whole time.
You get a bad mark.
You see them look up here once in a while, but it's not like constantly
right
off it.
And you get a bad mark when you look up. But when we talk about mouth to ear, you know, think about all the way back to the beginning. You know, that the word. You know, the word was spoken. At least that's how we say it. I don't think that that's exactly how it happened, but the vibration was spoken, in my opinion. But the word was spoken, and then even the mystery school of the Judaic faith, Kabbalah, that means mouth to ear. Basically, it means that it's a secret that you're, you know, giving from one brother to another, and it's very intimate, and it's very purposeful that it's that way. And I think that once we get away from that in Freemasonry, it starts to lose its luster. I think they went to having the projectors and all that kind of stuff because we watered it down so much, and we got everybody so busy joining every appendant body trying to keep everything afloat that they weren't able to hone in on their craft in whichever body they were happiest at being in. They had to participate in all of them because we got so thin. And I think that that's part of the problem right there. As we get more members or more brothers, you can replace people like me. I'm replaceable, and that's cool with me. I'd rather just sit on the sidelines and watch and enjoy the degree. I love watching the degrees. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love it. But, until we get the members to support that, we've got to do what we got to do. But I agree with you that ciphers are great. They're awesome. But they shouldn't be in the lodge.
Yeah, I agree. Oh man, I had a point. I totally just blanked out. But yeah, there's a. So, to be clear, from my end, there is a time and place for everything. Like, I'm not saying that necessarily having an aid is terrible, but it should not be in front of people learning the work, and it definitely should not be in the lodge. Because once you start allowing that in the lodge, it starts being open when you're opening and closing. And then suddenly, why do I have to memorize it when I have a book I could just use? Right? Or you have a guy going through degrees. Why should I have to memorize it when the guy teaching me doesn't even have it memorized?
Right. How important is it to him really?
Yeah.
How important it goes right back to what we say about, opening and closing lodge. How important is that position that they fill in that lodge if they don't even know what the words are to something as simple as that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not a good ritualist, but when we had a couple of EAs during COVID, and I conferred those degrees. I learned it and conferred it because I knew that was my duty as master of the lodge, to be that role in the lodge for the degrees also. And I think that, everybody should take it that seriously, that they should be able to at least do their role in their lodge.
And Cody Stewart in the chat, he points out, I just assume everyone's from Texas, and I know we're not, so he's right. I mean, here in Texas, having a cipher on the lodge property, not just in the lodge room, but having it on the property is illegal. And you shouldn't even have it on lodge property in Texas. And right. I think that's great, me personally, because if you have it, the temptation's there, right?
Right.
And once you relax on that, it goes. I think everything snowballs, right? Once you start letting on property, it snowballs into being in the lodge room, and then it snowballs into being open during the degrees and stated meetings, and we end up with the problem we talked about. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, I just assume everybody's from Texas and knows that, but maybe for everybody from Texas doesn't know that either. You're not even supposed to have your cipher on lodge property. And that's good. That's good. You should not have it on lodge property because you don't, like, if you're at home going over it and you just need a quick reminder, sure. But it should not be on lodge property at all. At all.
Kadeem, them's fighting words. Don't you be pulling that crap in my Zoom meeting. Did you see that?
Oh, shots fired, Kadeem.
I know, right?
Shots fired. but I mean, yeah, it is a real the aid to memory. Like I enjoy York Rite, and I enjoy the type of brothers that are in York Rite, because it's often the leaders in Blue Lodge often go into York Rite. But yeah, it's that is part of the problem, is having those books. And you could say, well, don't allow them in your chapter council. Sure, yeah, you could, but it goes back to, like, once you lower that bar, it's hard to raise it back up. It's no process at all to say you can start using that for in the lodge, but it's a process to say, okay, we're not going to use it anymore, because people have to learn that stuff.
You know what though? It really is it really a matter of the fault of having the book that makes them lazy, or is it the fault of the lodge not having floor school that makes them lazy?
Mm.
I mean, if you inspect what you expect, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're not doing that, if you don't have that set opportunity like clockwork,
Mm-hmm.
then is that really an important thing to your lodge? So really, if you want to fix that problem, you make sure that there's a floor school for it, whether it's Blue Lodge, Scottish Rite, the Elks, whatever you're a member of. If you want to raise your expectation, I didn't do that, Jason. He did it. If you want to raise your expectations, you have to set apart the time and be intentional and make sure that the brothers know, and you let people know that it's just like with going to the stupid forums and getting that signature, so you don't have to do anything else to sit in that seat in lodge. That's a bunch of crap. I want people to go to the forums. The forums are a vital part.
You just said they're stupid, Dennis.
They're only stupid when you're there.
Oh
Justin.
My God, dude! Wow. It's past your bedtime. You're getting cranky.
I know it, right? But the reality is, though, is that, we have this. The values of our lodge are so low that we say, okay, if you go to that forum, you'll be okay. You can be the master of the lodge if you go to that forum. You don't have to go to OLT. You don't have to, do this or do that. You don't have to prove your proficiency to the district instructor. You just sit on down in that seat and just manage us well, buddy. You got this. But, what are we really teaching people? So if you really want excellence in your lodge, you set apart time and you make sure it's a time people can attend. You don't do it in the day during a weekday when all the guys that are retired can be there. You do it in the evenings or on the weekend when all of your brothers that work for a living can be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you set that expectation, and then you tell your officers, hey, you're not going to the next seat until I tell you you're going to the next seat. You have to learn this stuff. You have to know it. You have to live it, breathe it, and you have to be that leader that we need you to be, or you're not going to be in that seat. Plain and simple.
Cody Stewart just put you on the list, just so you know. but hey, Cody, to your point, and I said this at the beginning, forums are extremely valuable, but the time commitment.
They are.
The time it commitment.
That's how we know what to do.
Yeah. The time commitment it takes to go to a forum versus the time commitment it takes to actually learn the work to open and close your lodge are wildly disproportional. Wildly. And so it kind of I think the forums are very valuable, but geez, man, if you can't open and close your lodge, you probably don't need to be in that seat, man. I'm just saying, like, if you can't do your role. And I'm not saying like you have to be word perfect, because we're all human, right? I'm not saying you have to be like totally immaculate. But man, if you can't competently, and I think there's a big difference between being able to do it competently and being perfect. If you can't do it competently with some consistency, yikes, man, because it's gonna, and we said this before, like it. I've seen lodges. You cannot have a well-run meeting if they can't even open the lodge, right? It sets the tone for the entire meeting, and it just drags it on at that point.
Yeah. The reason why I asked to study the senior board the other day is because I'm gonna have to sit in the West for this lodge at our next stated meeting, and I don't want to mess it up. I care. I don't want to mess it up. I want to be the example for all the other brothers that you take it seriously and do a good job and make it somewhat beautiful to watch and to be a part of. And I think that every brother should take that to heart and and do the same. But we're, in fact, like I said, we're talking about starting up a new floor school for this lodge. And guess where I go to get my training to be able to help over here? I go to Goliad, because Goliad is a premier lodge with the work, a premier lodge with everything that they're doing. And I hate to be that guy that comes into this lodge and says, well, in Goliad, we do it this way. Well, there was a time that I used to say, well, in McKinney, we do it this way when I was in Goliad. But now Goliad is at this level, at that same level. And so now I'm in a great position to serve this lodge and help, to build up our brothers there. And that's where I'm going, is Goliad, to hone in on my skills and be prepared to help these brothers.
I want to say something real quick, and then I think we should probably start wrapping up. But we talked in our last live. Someone asked, "How can you tell if a lodge is successful?" Because we were talking about our new series we're going to come out with. And I said, I hate to be superficial, but you can tell a lot about just looking at the lodge. Move aside for a second. Look at this lodge room. I can look at that lodge room and tell you that is a healthy, successful Masonic lodge. And you can tell, and I know it's extremely superficial, but you can move back. A poorly run Masonic lodge does not look like that. It does not look like that.
Right. Yeah. Do what? What was that, brother?
I said they got ceiling tiles falling from the ceiling.
Who does?
Who does? I mean, I know.
It was that one brother that was here last time. Wasn't it Israel? I think it was his lodge that had the drooping tiles and the trash cans everywhere collecting water.
Yeah, I know. I know what lodge you're talking about. I know.
Oh man, I've heard stories about that lodge.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But Goliad looked like that at one time too, and we just had to buckle down and put the money in and get it all fixed up. 30 grand later, here we are with a beautiful lodge that everybody loves to come and visit. You should, in fact, for those of you watching in this live, March 23rd is the weekend that we do the Phantom Memorial, and Grand Lodge will come in and open up a representation of the Grand Lodge of Texas in Goliad, and then we'll go over to the Phantom Memorial site and have our service, and then come back for lunch. I say we, but I won't be there. I'll be at the symposium in San Antonio. We've got a big line of speakers that are going on there. Brothers, if you're going to be in the San Antonio area, or if you're further north than San Antonio, come on down to San Antonio and check out the symposium. I think if you're further south than San Antonio, you really need to go to the Phantom Memorial, because that's where Grand Lodge will be. And you should always support your Grand Lodge events when they're close enough. But that being said, brothers from Austin, stuff like that, you ought to trickle down into San Antonio and get a seat in this symposium. It's you've got some powerhouse speakers there that the speakers that I love are going to be there. And I can't wait. I can't wait to just watch. I'm honored to be able to speak, but I just can't wait to watch, because these guys are some of the best minds in Freemasonry. And it's all esoteric focused discussions. We're not talking catechism. We're not talking we're mentioning catechism to get to the esoteric, but it's not lodge maintenance. It's not Masonic history. It's all esoteric driven discussion, and it's going to be great. So if you can make it, make it. If you're further south in San Antonio, then I would say go to the Phantom Memorial on that weekend, because that's always an awesome event, and you should definitely support it.
Very true.
Yeah.
Well, let's open it up. I think this is the longest live we've ever done. We've been doing this for 2.5 hours, and I think we could probably go longer. It's been good conversations tonight. Yeah, I know, right? I was like, how long has this been? I was looking at the time. Yeah, almost 2.5 hours. It's
spring break.
There. I know. Anyone have any final thoughts they'd like to share? Anything going on in the area, or anything for the good of the order? I will say on the 18th, I'll be at Salado Lodge. I'm giving a presentation there. I'm pulling a Right Worshipful Rumsey right now. I don't know what I want to talk on yet, but
You are not worthy to put yourself in that class, sir. You have not made it there yet. I'll stop you right there. Thank you.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't think I'll ever be at the quality of Right Worshipful Rumsey. But I will be at Salado on the 18th if anyone's in the area, if they want to come and visit and touch base there. But other than that, I'm
going to talk about some genuine brothers, man. They are some genuine brothers. You're going to enjoy it.
You talked there last year, didn't you?
I talked there right after Grand Lodge.
Right after Grand Lodge.
I was there the Monday after Grand Lodge.
Got you.
Sorry, I was going to say March 21st. Durant is going to have their stated meeting, and we stole a gavel from Texas and took it over into Oklahoma. So if you guys want to come grab it back to Texas, it's a real beautiful, probably 3.5 foot big gavel.
You gave your gavel to Oklahoma.
Oh, first off, I'm still waiting on Billy Moss, so I came as an Oklahoma Mason. So I came and stole it and took it into Oklahoma.
That's awesome.
Traitor.
Yeah, he hold it hostage until they make him a member. That's awesome.
Yeah, come and get it.
Come and take it. Yeah, nice. Anyone else? Anything else?
Yeah. So March 30th, I'm starting a monthly to bi-monthly men's fellowship breakfast. We're just going to kind of go around and meet for breakfast.
Very
all
cool.
the lodges in my district, inviting all them, and then surrounding districts, just trying to that's one thing that my lodge does struggle a little bit with is fraternalism. And I'm trying to help bolster that by, at least maybe inviting some other brothers from around, and that way maybe they'd feel more comfortable. I don't really know what else to do, but this is, I think, going to be pretty cool. So.
Very nice.
Kudos on that. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot like what we're doing with our Scottish Rite Club down in the Coastal Bend, is that we travel either from lodge to lodge or even to venues. Like this next meeting is going to be at Saltgrass, and we've got a private room, so that we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. In fact, we're going to do the Feast of Remembrance and Renewal there, and for the Scottish Rite, we're bringing all the feasts down into the Coastal Bend with our Scottish Rite Club, and we're reenacting all the feasts, so that our brothers down there that are 3 hours away from, San Antonio can enjoy the benefits of being Scottish Rite Masons. But yeah, but we're doing that on a different scale in the evenings on a night that nobody else meets down in the Coastal Bend. That way everybody can get there and get to know each other and kind of mend some fences, because we've had a tough year. We've had a tough few years. Mm-hmm. So, mending fences is important right now, and I applaud you, brother. I can't wait to come up there and hang out with you guys and be a part of that, because you got something special going on up there, and your brothers are all in with you, and I think that's real special. It's hard to find is a lodge that is ready to shift cultures for the betterment of Masonry. That's really cool. And it takes a minute. It takes a minute because they're not used to it. Mm-hmm. But, I think you're doing the right things to help them get used to it, to where it's going to really take a foothold and do well.
Yep. Consistency is important. It takes time. It was suggested by one of our members, Charles Deerdove. A topic for next week maybe how to, and I think this is good, how to bolster brotherhood and fraternity in a lodge that is struggling with this. That's definitely worth. That's definitely worth visiting.
Yeah. Let's all bring our thinking caps inner circle and think about the different things that you have implemented or seen implemented that can help that conversation. I think that's a great one to have.
I agree. I think that's that's something a lot of people can get value out of. So thank you for suggesting that. I think that's excellent.
Yeah, because just like we were saying, it past few years have been pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the past 40 years have been pretty tough on our fraternity, and we really need to get back to some basics of brotherly love and affection. Right?
Yeah.
We need to find that again.
I think in fact for the last 40 years, if it hasn't been a fundraiser, a lot of lodges have neglected it, and so and that's just for some reason that's the direction most lodges seem to have taken over the last several decades. And now we're looking at these other approaches, like how can we actually bring fraternalism into our fraternity? How can we actually do education? They're not dumb questions because it's been neglected for so long. So I think it's good to reevaluate these things.
Yeah, and then you had during the same period you had the ship floats. So you had the guys with the feathers that were rising to the top because they had a little bit of money, and so the lodge was dependent on that little bit of money, and so they would let them just take charge of anything and everything. I think that was a big part of the last 40 years that caused a lot of the division within our fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, yeah. I'll just leave it at that. I could go real deep into that.
Are there any other final thoughts? Dennis, do you have
I'm just kind of showing you our dining room, and of course the only thing that's driving me crazy right now is we got the entire district fantastic teeth stuff in that's driving me crazy right now. But other than that, you can see, I mean, we've taken a lot of steps to make sure that when somebody walks in, it's not the most fancy lodge, dining room, but you know what? It's organized. There's not a bunch of clutter around and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's important. It's a first impression when somebody walks in and there's just like stuff piled everywhere and disorganized and dirty. That's what I was here for. Was we had our housekeepers here, and I had to open the door for them. So that's why I've been kind of stuck here.
Mm-hmm.
But it is important. I mean, anyway.
No, for a lot of lodges, just being clean and orderly will go a long way.
Oh yeah, I've been talking to the master of the lodge now in Goliad, and we're looking at, of course, with permission, any of you guys that are listening, we're looking at as soon as the weather gets good enough that we can yank everything out of the downstairs, then we want to pull all the stuff out, including the kitchen, the bar, everything with it, and clean up and then stain the cement floors, because we have cement floors. And so we would like to clean up and stain the floors so that it would be nicer than just stained floors from coffee.
Are you going to do like a uniform stain, or are you going to do like I've seen where they have, I don't know what it's actually called, but it's like more than one color. It kind of like I don't know what you do, but it's almost like a pattern, like a swirl into the stain itself. What are y'all thinking?
Right. You can do that. I was thinking more of just a, it's almost like a leather look to the stain. It's a blended stain, but it's not mixed all the way. You've got black and brown, that's a light brown and black that's mixed partially to where it creates this rustic leather look, more of a copper type of look on the floor.
I like a picture of that when you get it done. I'm looking for ideas for my lodge because we still have the old linoleum and it's concrete.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different things you can do with cement floors. The reason I wanted to go with the stain as opposed to epoxy and stuff like that. Epoxy is durable and will last 20 years, and it's easy to clean stuff up off of it too. But after a while, if you do get bubbles, or you get oil that seeps up from the bottom, it creates bubbles, and then it starts flaking and creates a just huge mess. And I know this from my time of restoring transmission shops when I owned my shops. It's a hard process to get it right and do it. I did that to 4 different shops. and it's a tough process. So that's why we're going with the stain. But there's so many options you can do nowadays with concrete floors. Anything would be better than just concrete.
Yeah. But in some cases, concrete's better than the 40-year-old linoleum you have there.
Oh yeah, tell me. And hopefully the linoleum's not glued down heavily. Of course, there's going to be some glue, and you'll have to use acetone to pull it up. But hopefully, it's not too bad, to where you'll be able to clean it up.
Yeah.
Ours has never been done. It's always been concrete.
But you.
I'm always distracting you. I don't mean to distract you. It's just
I know, man.
If Dennis sees a squirrel,
Nice.
if he sees a squirrel or anything like his entire, see now I'm doing the same thing.
I just made some cards to pass out as like
Ooh,
an
I
analog
love that.
contact card.
Yes, I love that bottom one, man. That's awesome.
Man, that's
Yes.
nice.
I'm digging it.
Very cool.
Hey, I am a member of Masonic Order, so I totally dig it.
Nice. Look at this guy.
And for all you 10 hat guys out there, you never know what's going on
Yeah.
until you know what's going on.
All right, Dennis, what are your final thoughts so we can wrap this bad boy up?
Man, I am so stoked. That's beautiful. Wow,
nice.
that's a gold flake card. Man, that's awesome.
What was that movie where they're comparing each other's business cards? I'm trying to remember. It wasn't Wolf of Wall Street. It was like a. Geez, what was that movie? It's about. I think they're investors.
Jesus wouldn't know. He wasn't around during.
But they
movies.
were like sitting around the table comparing business cards with each other. So.
That's awesome.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. What were you saying?
That's all right. All right. So
It was American Psychos, I think, wasn't it?
That was it. Yes.
that's yes.
Yes.
Of course, you would know that. No, I think
I
you don't.
Googleized it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Final thoughts. It's easy. I didn't freeze up. Sorry. It's easy to always look for the negative in anything we do. It's difficult to be the person that is willing to have good ideas. It's even more difficult to get the buy-in on those good ideas from everyone around you. But if we follow the tenets that we learn in Freemasonry, then it makes that job a little bit easier. We've talked about some pretty important things tonight in regards to, and it's all in regards to the culture of the lodge, right? These are things that affect the culture of the lodge. So when you're dealing with the culture of the lodge, you have to remember it's not going to be overnight that anything is going to happen. But it does take persistence in choosing the better option, right? Just like in the Matrix, you can pick the blue pill or the red pill. Which one are you going to pick? I choose to look at possibility instead of look at the negativity in where we come from. Now, of course, we have to identify that, right? We have to identify what's wrong in order for us to change it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we only focus on what's wrong, we're never going to change it. We're only going to dig our heels in deeper. And when you have those brothers in the lodge, and we all have, that once you propose something new, something positive, something that's better for the fraternity, they're always going to bring up, well, this is why it is the way it is. Well, okay. Well, those tensions started with old members that are not going to be a part of the future of the lodge. So the things you do today are going to be what impacts if your lodge is even going to be there 10 years from now. And those people that have those grudges from all that time back are probably not going to be there when that 10-year line comes. You know, those issues that created all the problems are not going to be the same issues that you're going to have 10 years from now if you stop it right now and move forward with something better. And it all starts with one person. Mm-hmm. Every Master Mason has a vote. And you can vote to allow these brothers to control the future of the lodge, or you can vote to stand up for the lodge and what it actually means and what you're actually a part of, so that it will stifle anything here. The worst thing you could do is it's kind of like a post I saw today where the guy said, well, we're going to talk about how to raise money, revenue for the lodge. What are your ideas? Our dues are here, degree fees, blah, 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 blah. Well,
was that what you said? That was a post online?
Yeah, you commented on it, not on ours, on Texas Freemasons.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then everybody had an idea, but those are all just thoughts. Unless you have concrete figures on what your expenses are and all that kind of stuff, you can never decide on what your dues should be. Mm-hmm. So just remember that if you come to the table with logic and facts and what can turn that around, then you're going to be more appreciated than that other guy. And when they come up to you and say, well, you just don't know the story, say, I don't want to know the story. I don't need to know the story. Mm-hmm. All I know is today we have a broken system because of the story that you keep holding on to. And I don't want any part of that. I'm ready to be in the future of Freemasonry, and I'm ready to fight for this lodge and fight for the brothers who are missing out on all those education opportunities because you decided that you couldn't get past a grudge.
You have people bringing feelings to a facts party.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how things changed in Waco this past year. Is we had logic and we had truth and facts, and we used it, and they weren't ready for that. The same thing in your lodge. If you have those simple things in place, if you have a plan, then you can shift the culture. But it takes the buy-in, and it takes one person standing up to these people and saying, this is not where we're going forward. So if you want to be a part of what we're going to do going forward, come on, let's do it together.
Yep.
If you want to be part of that's just going to talk about why we're here, then go away, go with them, go away, have your pity party, have whatever you want, but leave us alone. There comes a time when we have to say that. We have to do what's good for the lodge. If it's good for the lodge, do it. If it's not, don't.
To chime in on what you're saying, a lot of people want to be leaders, right? And like you said, these people claim to be leaders, but they're often the first people out the door. But also what comes with leadership is sometimes you make people unhappy, right? Your goal is to serve the lodge, but sometimes in doing so, you're going to upset some people. And that comes with leadership. When you're leading and people are looking to you, people are going to, it's inevitable. At some point, people are going to nitpick you. So be ready for that. Understand that's part of what comes with leadership.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're not going to make everybody happy.
You can't.
And you'll notice when you're on the right track, when you start walking into a room and a few people start getting uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
then you know you're on the right track.
Absolutely.
So just stay strong. You have support. And if you think that you're part of the old guard that won't be around in 10, 20 years, but you support the shift of the culture, then support your brothers that are going to be working 10, 20 years from now, that care,
Mm-hmm.
that love the fraternity like you do. You know, make sure that they have your full support, because you're the one that's going to be able to show these guys over here that it's not just their generation thing, that there's other guys that out there that believe in that too, that it's just a negativity thing. So, you know, be that past master that your lodge needs you to be. And that's very important in today's world, in the climate that we're in today. We need to be the past masters that our lodge needs to be.
Absolutely.
With this lodge here, every time I show up, I'm asking, where can I help? What do you need me to do? If you need me to sweep, as soon as my arm's healed, I'll sweep. If you need me to mention something, some kind of education, I can pull it out anytime and just give you some short something and make it a benefit to the lodge. If you need me to sit in one of the chairs, I'm happy to do that. You know, I'm here for the success of the lodge. I'm here for the success of our future brothers. Because really, I'm just part of the now, right? The future brothers are coming in that are 20 years. They're 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be here a lot longer than I will. I'm not going to be here as long as they are. So I'm trying to make it better for them, give them a good foundation to build upon. And there's certain brothers in the lodge that have done that for you also, even though you don't realize it, because some of the other brothers are louder and tend to stifle that positivity. But I say that because this week I'm going to the Grand Lodge of New Mexico, and speaking of positivity, they are, you know, our New Mexico brothers are some of the most genuine people I've ever met. They just love Freemasonry. They love the fellowship. They love each other. And it's very apparent in everything that they do.
Mm-hmm.
They're not ugly to each other. They're always looking to what they can do to help improve the craft. And I'm just in total admiration of those guys. And so I'm going there in support of that. And I think that there's a lot of lodges like that in Texas. I think the culture is shifting in the Grand Lodge of Texas to where we're showing that who we are is more important than who you think we are.
Mm.
And I think that it all started back when we were first initiated in, and we swept the floors, and we made the dinners, and we picked up the plates. You know, those few have risen to a point to where I'm happy to follow.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to serve with them. So brothers, if you're struggling in your lodges, let us know. We're here to help you. If there's any documentation you'd like to know about to help in any certain areas, we've got lots of resources, and we might know a guy. If we don't know it, we know a guy. So, like Brother Huff is doing in Royce City Lodge, you know, they're trying to change the culture, and it doesn't happen overnight. Our culture in Goliad's been changing for 7 years that I know of, and really it started a little bit before that, but it took that long before we got to where we are today, and we're still not finished. We're still building upon that foundation that we started 7 years ago. So takes time and patience and perseverance. Don't forget those lessons of freedom, fervency, and zeal. It's paramount right now. It's paramount. And if you feel like you're the only one in that lodge and you're on an island, we're here because we were just like you. Absolutely. And so we feel you, we understand you, and we can help you. And we're always happy to come by and support you.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're on the right side of things, because I'll also tell you if you're wrong. Because that's what we do. That's the black and white of it. We're here to help each other, to learn from each other and sharpen each other. The brothers, you guys have a great week, and I hope you enjoy your Freemasonry like I'm going to. I'll be in the hills of Ruidoso, where there will still be snow skiing and spring break and zip lining across the mountain lake. And yeah, it's going to be good times. I don't get to be a part of that because I have a clipped wing, but I get to watch the girls do that stuff. So it's going to be cool. But I am going to enjoy a bunch of good Freemasonry. If you're not getting it where you are, travel. Mm-hmm. If you are getting it where you are, travel, because that's only going to help you become better.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I do what I do. It's not for me to think I'm smarter than the rest of the people in the room. It's for me to grow by visiting different lodges and learning the cultures that are out there, and taking a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, and taking it home to my lodge and offering it up. And every once in a while you'll get something that clicks with everybody. And when that happens, man, you got to roll on that momentum.
Yep.
For sure. So this is taking way too long for a closing argument or closing talk, but it's been a good talk tonight, and I think that we've touched on some really good stuff. Ritual means everything to the lodge. Make sure you're solid on it. If you want to be a leader, you got to know your ritual. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that you have to know all the lectures. I'm just saying you have to know what your job is in the lodge.
Absolutely.
And be the leader that inspects what he expects. Not in an ugly way, just make sure that there's opportunity for people to get better. That's our job. Make sure there's opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
So everything else being equal, keep it between the points.
See y'all next week.
See y'all later. Thank you.